Well, welcome to our Mainstreet Masters Series presented by Mainstreet SA. I'm David West, your host, and today we're talking about the revival of Danville, Virginia, with Great American Mainstreet Award winner Diana Schwartz, the CEO of the River District Association in Danville. Welcome, Diana, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here with you today.
I was really impressed in reading on some of the notes there about how when you were looking to start the revival and were looking at some of the issues that needed to be solved, that external investors said, well, if you're not investing in your own place, why should we come along and invest? And I thought that was a really interesting angle to look at. And often that's how investors will look at us about what we're actually doing in our own patch.
Absolutely. And I have to say, it has definitely paid off for us to take that approach, as I'm very excited to share with you today.
Yes, and I think the thing that stood out for me was the way you brought a lot of partners along, and you saying you had so many partners, and I think we'll see that today. So thank you so much, and we'll now go into your presentation. Thank you, Diana.
Fantastic. I'll go ahead and get myself pulled up here. And can you see my screen okay? It should have River District Danville.
Yes.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I am just going to launch right into it. I will try to remind myself not to speak too quickly. It is a very bad habit of mine. My name is Diana Schwartz. I'm the CEO of the River District Association in downtown Danville, Virginia. I will go ahead and say straight off the bat, clearly, I have a very thick Southern accent, and so hopefully that is not going to cause any issues. But at any time, if you have any questions or need any clarification, I'm happy to do so after the presentation. So thank you again for inviting me to be here with you today. I am so excited to share our story. So, a little bit of background about the River District. It's actually downtown Danville, Virginia. And we are located on the eastern seaboard, the mid-Atlantic in the United States. And specifically, you can see, I've drawn a little line. You can see exactly where we are in Virginia. We're the little blue dot at the bottom amongst that sea of red. And then you can see a little bit more detail exactly where we are in Virginia. There are some demographics there. They are a bit outdated, but I did want to give you at least an idea of the area that we are speaking about. Danville has had an incredible history. Of course, nothing compared to the history that we see around the world. A lot, Europe, Australia, you've had a lot more time than we have. However, that said, the history of the United States, Danville has had a very, very rich history. We've had lots of goings on from the Civil War took place between the states was here in Danville, Virginia. Also, the civil rights movement in the United States. There were a lot of activities around the civil rights movement that also took place in Danville, Virginia. So the culture and the history here is very, very rich. And as far as industry goes, for a very, very long time, it has been agriculture, particularly the tobacco industry. That is what kept this area alive for hundreds of years, quite frankly. We have been through so many ups and downs economically. We have been everything from a railroad powerhouse and again, a tobacco powerhouse. But over time, we begin to see that industry slow down, and tobacco was no longer in fashion. But it was near about that time that the textile industry began to really ramp up and became a powerhouse once again in Danville, Virginia. It was Dan River Fabrics, and they had one of the largest single site textile mills in the entire eastern seaboard of the United States, and one of the largest in the country at the time. They employed generations of people for over 100 years, and it is still standing today, a 650,000 square foot. Of course, I'm in the U.S., so we don't have metric, but square foot facility on the banks of the Dan River, which runs right through the middle of downtown Danville. And so this fed generations of people. There were children who really thought once they were finished with their education that they too would go and work in the mill. It was the major industry and the economic driver in Danville, Virginia. Unfortunately, in 2000s, we saw a lot of our industry be offshored, and we lost a lot of manufacturing in the United States due to NAFTA. And of course, our textile industry was a big part of that. So slowly we saw a lot of the jobs go overseas. And eventually in 2006, it was the final death knell for our textile mills. They shut the door completely and the economy collapsed. We are talking about tens of thousands of people who have now lost their job in an area that was heavily dependent on that industry. So as you can imagine, complete collapse, what does that look like? It looks very much like what you see. In the United States, we were already faced with a lot of people moving away from the central districts, the historic downtown districts, thanks to the highway system that was built in the 1950s. It allowed a lot of people who had formerly been near the downtown centers, the downtowns, if you will, to then be able to have housing further away in the suburbs. You know, everyone wanted a nice house with a nice yard for their children, but we began to see a lot of our businesses move away from the downtown closer to the suburbs where so many people had moved away. So we were already combating a lot of movement out of the district when the collapse happened. And of course, exactly what you see and what you can think. When all of the revenue, all of the jobs are gone, people aren't spending as much money, then we don't have sales tax revenue, we don't have food and lodging revenue. And of course, as the buildings begin to deteriorate because there's really no money for upkeep, you begin to see a lot of blight in the area. This was also very, very difficult for the municipality. They did not have the money to be able to maintain such massive amounts of infrastructure that was in place to be able to support the industry that was the textile mill. So as you can see, we were in a bit of a pickle, to say the least. It was a very, very bad situation. Where we are in Virginia is quite rural. Again, being primarily an agriculture community, there was a lot of angst about exactly what would happen. Children were graduating school and they were moving away and they weren't coming back, and the population was getting thinner and thinner. So about that time, the leadership in our area made the decision that they would investigate and go and visit other communities who had been through the same types of trials and tribulations that Danville had. However, they were beginning to see some progress and coming back economically. And so one of the areas that they identified that was very similar to Danville, Virginia, was a place called Greenville, South Carolina. There was a lot of similarity there. They had been a former textile mill community, as we saw all over the United States. They had a river that went through their downtown, and they had found a lot of success by putting all of their energy into redeveloping their historic downtown. They really thought that there was an opportunity to be able to bring back industry, but before they could do that, they had to have a quality place to live, a quality of life that would draw people in, and then from there be able to bring in more developers and more investment. So our local charitable foundation, Danville Regional Foundation, paid for what they call a See the Possible trip. And they paid for our leadership to spend a week in Greenville, South Carolina, and discuss how did you do this? What did you do right? What did you do wrong? What would you do different? And they brought all of that information back and made the, at the time, very controversial decision to move forward and put money into downtown Danville, public dollars. So this started with the River District Redevelopment Plan, September 14th of 2011. And this was the very beginning of trying to figure out exactly what we needed to do to begin to once again draw investment into our river district, our historic district. So to start with that, there were 4 buildings that were identified to be catalyst buildings. These were projects that if we could draw in developers to begin to develop these 4 critical projects that were placed in places in the downtown that we knew would spur additional development, that we may be able to see some progress and some movement. Unfortunately, as is the case, our infrastructure had degraded to the point where the sidewalks were in very bad shape, the roads were in very bad shape. And one of the first things that we learned in this process is that if you are not willing to invest in your own downtown, you cannot expect other people to invest in your community as well. So they knew the very first thing we had to do, even before we worked on these catalytic buildings, was streetscape improvements. We had to begin to solidify the infrastructure of our downtown. This was done in phases. We could not afford over time to do everything at once. Clearly, we're talking about a community who has faced economic collapse. And so very slowly, we began with sidewalks and benches. Eventually, we added in bike racks, additional signage, and then plants, flowers, street lighting, trash cans, all of the things that you would normally see on your streetscape. Thankfully, we did begin to see, thanks to all of this beautiful placemaking, some investment. Part of this, of course, was wayfinding, signage, banners, sense of place. That is very important to establish that sense of place, because the downtown had been completely abandoned. It was one of those places where people said, don't go there. It's dangerous. You're going to get hurt. You know, and they weren't completely wrong. A lot of the buildings were collapsing. The facades, the fronts were collapsing into the street. Some of them had fencing around them to keep them from falling into the street. It was a very dire situation. So once the city began to put money into things like wayfinding, our local community was not happy, because their attitude at the time was, we know where City Hall is, we know where the courthouse is, we know where the library is. And it was very difficult for people to begin to wrap their mind around the idea that other people might want to come here. And so initially there was a lot of negative feedback. It took a lot of courage and a lot of bravery and some really good planning for our elected and appointed officials to make this decision. But they knew that the choice was do something or do nothing, and do nothing was going to get them no closer to where they wanted to be. So it was it was a risk, but it was an educated risk. So at this point, they were able to move into the larger planning, the greater plan, if you would. And this was a 3-point plan to eliminate blight, to bring down critical mass, and then to bring in the lifestyle amenities. And again, that quality of place and that placemaking that would make it a very attractive place for people to come and live, work, play, and invest ultimately. So the first part of this plan was to eliminate blight. You see some photos here of what is now known as Newton's Landing. This is actually very clean compared to what it looked like initially. This area is by the river, and unfortunately it became a massive dumping ground. They've cleaned up the pictures a bit. I wish they had not have done that to give you a better view. But this was the before and now after. Now I know we are looking at a parking lot, right? A parking lot. That doesn't seem like such a great investment, perhaps. But the area where this is lined with historic tobacco warehouses, giant tobacco warehouses. And they already knew, as part of that bringing critical mass, that we wanted to redevelop these giant warehouses into loft living apartments. And in order to do that, we would need places for people to park. And so it made perfect sense to take this brownfield that was contaminated and turn it into a parking lot to be able to accommodate all of the new residential that we were very confident would eventually come. Another part of that bringing critical mass, not only bringing people to live to the River District, but we needed a catalyst to get them downtown. And so our local private university, Averett University, had decided to start a nursing school program. And they did not have enough room at the current university located approximately 2 miles. Again, my apologies for not being in metric, 2 miles away from the downtown. So they had lots of great conversations, and the university decided to make the investment in downtown and put their School of Nursing downtown. This is one, although it may not seem like it, this was one of the most critical parts to begin to get people to come downtown again, because that perception is reality. And until people begin to overcome that perception by experiencing it themselves, it was going to be very hard to begin to bring that critical mass downtown that we really needed. Another part of that, this is one of those catalytic properties that we were talking about before, one of those 4 catalysts. Part of bringing critical mass is we wanted to focus on types of businesses and industries similar to the nursing school. That is something that people would absolutely have to come downtown for. So this is the before of what was formerly the Dan River Research Building. And this is the after that you can see. This is now a medical facility. It's mixed use. There's also a restaurant inside. There's a few investment firms inside. No residential in this particular building, but the entire thing has been rehabilitated and is now thriving gladly. Another one of those catalytic properties to bring critical mass was Pemberton Lofts. And again, this is one of those old tobacco warehouse buildings. Thankfully, this one has windows, which made that conversion into lofts a bit easier than a building that does not have windows. And so as you can see here, it's very attractive living. And we were able to keep a lot of the character. That is one thing that Danville has done very, very well, is to make sure to use all the tools available to them to protect these historic properties. And thankfully, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, we have tools that make it easier to do that, both in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in the country. We have tax credit programs for people who redevelop historic properties. If they follow specific guidelines to protect the history of those buildings, they can receive a large amount of their investment back in the form of tax credits. And so this is one of the major ways, one of the primary ways that we were able to afford to continue to redevelop these properties downtown, is some of the financing tools that we have available to us. So lifestyle amenities, this is great. We now have a school downtown, a college. We have medical facilities. We're beginning to see, the streetscape is looking beautiful. People are starting to buy buildings and start to consider what they could do with these various properties. So next we knew we had to really dig into that quality of life and quality of place. And so we've got this beautiful river running through our downtown. What an amazing natural asset. And so we decided to use it to the fullest. And we built this beautiful Riverwalk trail that actually follows the river for 12 miles and goes through the downtown and then much farther on either side. And what this has done is allowed us to really tap into the outdoor economy and the outdoor sporting and health economy. We now see a lot of people who come to do mountain biking in our area, kayaking, fishing, canoeing, because the river is now accessible and used on a regular basis. This has been a huge part of the draw for people to want to come and live downtown, because they have immediate access to an absolutely gorgeous river and lots of beautiful nature. Another part of that is going to be bringing restaurants, of course. I wanted to point out particularly these 3 sides, all in some way, shape, or form, thematically tie back to the history of Danville. So we try to infuse that into everything that we do. Of course, retail and boutique shops are a huge part of that. We want to have drivers for people to have a reason to come back downtown again. And then, of course, something different, a little bit of that placemaking. We wanted to have a hammock garden where people could come and relax and enjoy some time outdoors with their children. Scooters available and bicycles available, particularly for people in our community who have a lot of socioeconomic challenges and just don't have the money for scooters and bikes. Now they are still able to come downtown and have family friendly, healthy activities and enjoy the downtown area. And then as we see more and more and more begins to come in, really exciting activities because it's now becoming a destination location. So fun activities such as hatchet throwing, game escape rooms, virtual golf and a social area, pinball bowling, I believe it's called. And so we're starting to really begin to see a mass of development that is taking place downtown. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I want to go ahead. We've been successful, which I'll show you more about that in a moment, but some projects that are underway. We're not done by any stretch of the imagination. I mentioned that 650,000 square foot building that used to be the textile mill right in the middle of our downtown, right on the riverbank. And how difficult it was psychologically for people to have to drive into downtown and see this building that was in horrible disrepair that generations of people had worked in and been able to provide for their families. So it was a kind of a constant reminder of the loss that they had experienced, and it really affected what I call community self-esteem. So thankfully, one of those projects, we've got several projects, but next door to that giant mill structure, we have this gorgeous riverfront park that is under construction as we speak. This is $11 million project in our downtown, is going to bring a lot of vibrancy back near the mill area. And again, provide more amenities and more reasons for families to come down and enjoy the downtown. This is the site where the riverfront park is being built right now. And as you can see the city in the background. You can see what an amazing addition this is going to be to our downtown. And there she is. There is the former White Mill building. It's so hard to get a sense of scale, except for all the little people that you can see standing at the tent on the far side of the building. This that you are looking at right now, that tent, was actually the site of the groundbreaking that we did when we announced the $80 million investment to rehabilitate this project and bring it back online in the form of housing, offices, restaurants, hotel, retail, and also some municipal offices as well. So that project is scheduled for completion at Q4 of the current year that we're in, 2024. This is the renderings of what it will look like after, and it does. I'm really happy to share. We are definitely on our way to exactly that. You will notice that there is a water feature, not only the river on what would be, I guess, the right side, but you see that there's also a water feature on the other side of the mill as well. And that is actually a canal that they used to use to be able to control and for power production while the mill was still functioning. But now we are actually taking that water feature and adding mechanics so that it can be a kayak training facility. Not only that, but it will also be able to be used because we can control the water that comes in and out for things like swift water rescue, for vehicles, for fire, for emergency personnel. So we know that this is actually going to be another major driver to bring people into our community. There it is again. That's the old picture. It says current. It doesn't quite look like that now. And this is the interior. I'm so sorry. This is the interior right before all of the major construction began. So we had cleaned out the inside. We had went ahead and put the initial coats of paint on, and it looks much different now. But you get an idea of the scope of the size of the project. It's just massive. So how did we accomplish all of these things? I've put the slides in the wrong order. Basically, what has happened now over the course of the last 10 years is the municipality has invested public money of $52 million, but the results are just astounding. We are now somewhere around $400 million of private investment that has come into the district because of all of the work that has been done, the focus that has been put on it, and the expertise that we were able to bring in. So how in the world did we do that, especially in 10 years? Well, I'm talking to Mainstreeters, and although I'm not completely familiar with Mainstreet South Australia, I am familiar with what we call the Mainstreet 4-point approach. And so, of course, we utilize this to organize the work and economic vitality, design, organization, and promotion. And I'll talk a little bit about the programming in each of those, and then we can wrap it up and go to some Q&A and further discussion. So organization point is very important to us. It is the way that we have been able to get our work done. Collaboration is key, and that's what we see the biggest point of organization being for us. The sustainability of our own organization, and then the facilitation of leadership collaboratives to come together in various industries and ways to be able to accomplish the goals that we have set out for ourselves. So what you see here are some of our major organizational funders, a lot of grants. That's how we make it work, a lot of grants. Our organization is a nonprofit. 501c3 is the designation in the United States for a nonprofit. And that basically means I have to go out and find the money, right? So we're fortunate that I do not have to go do a lot of fundraising, individual fundraising at this time, because our local charitable foundation understands the importance of this work and has been the primary funder for our organizational overhead. So we're very fortunate. This is part of my board of directors that you see here on the screen. So for the promotions points, the great thing about the 4-point approach is you can make it work for you and what works in the area that you are trying to revitalize. And so the way we have implemented the point in Danville is not really through events. We do one event each year for the goodwill of the community. It's not a fundraising event, but it's all centered around Christmas time. It's called Christmas on the Plaza. We also do some other things around that, cookies on the plaza. But other than that, the way that we see promotions and the way we implement promotions is primarily through promoting the district at large, promoting the businesses within that district, and then finding other ways to support our downtown. So really, when we look at promotions, it's things like we put together a gift guide every holiday season that is published in the newspapers alongside all of the adverts for all of those big box stores, so that we can compete a little bit with that and remind people. We run a gift card program for the downtown merchants, and we tried something really spectacular this past holiday season. We came up with a promotion. I was able to secure a grant for $10,000, and with our gift card program, for every $50 that someone spent in purchasing these gift cards, we would give them an additional $20 back. And so it only took 2 hours for us to go through the entire 10,000. And so you can see, not only did we pump $10,000 into the local economy, but people bought far, far more than that, far more than they needed to, because Shop Local is a huge ethos around what we do. That's a huge part of our promotions, is constantly reminding people, if we do not support our local businesses, we're not going to have them for very long. And so that's what we see our role primarily around promotions to be. Design, we spend a lot of time in facade improvements. So the front of the buildings, we run a grant program. If someone wants to begin to think about what could my building look like, we have design services that we can offer them to be able to show them renderings, especially if we need to motivate them to think about what they need to do. And we've also noticed if we can motivate one property owner to fix up their building, next door, they're not really happy about that, the way that their appearance is. So it can be very motivating. Once you have a couple of different projects going on the block, it really can be a motivator for your other property owners to consider upfits to their building. So not only do we have the rendering program to be able to show them what it would look like, we help them through the processes with the city and the municipality, the different permits they need to pull, anything that they need to do as far as government is concerned. And then we also help a little bit with the funding. We have matching funding up to $5,000 to be able to help them implement that plan. So that has been an incredibly popular program. We also do traditional things like Shine Up Days. We do lots of vibrant window programming. If we have a property in the downtown that is not occupied, we will get permission to program their windows with different advertising or promoting other businesses that are in the district. Because again, that perception is reality. And when people are in your district and they see empty windows, that is a signal to them, whether they realize it or not, that the area may not be very vibrant. So there's easy ways to overcome that false perception that the area isn't vibrant simply by programming some of your empty windows. I think the thing we are most well known for is in the area of economic vitality. We have really sunk a lot of our resources into entrepreneurship. When I first started with the downtown in 2017, it was empty storefront after empty storefront after empty storefront. And our board of directors charged me immediately with trying to figure out how are we going to get businesses to move into downtown. So we took a look at the resources that were available to us. And there is a program here in the Commonwealth of Virginia called Community Business Launch. And if your community, and in our organization, in our case, develops a business boot camp, if you will, a series of workshops that teach people the business basics of what they need to know to open their own business. It is a 6-week program. It only happens one time a year. We meet once a week for the 6 weeks, every Tuesday for 2 hours. And we bring in subject matter experts on everything from writing business plans to finance to how to find property and negotiate those leases. Anything that you need to know, access to capital, management, operations, all of the basics for basically any type of business. Anyone is welcome to come and take this program. Anyone can take one class. They can take all 6 classes. You can be local. You can be from anywhere, again, at no charge. But for those who complete the entire series of classes, they are giving a certificate of completion. And what that buys them is an opportunity to pitch their business idea, kind of a Shark Tank, if you will, for funding, gap funding only. We're not going to pay for the whole thing, but to close that gap for them to be able to make their dream a reality and open their brick and mortar business in the River District. So this program has been unbelievably successful. These aren't the most updated figures because yesterday we just finalized and finished the 6th year of the program. So this does not include the numbers for 2024. But through our boot camp, we have now helped to educate over 600 participants that have taken at least one class. And now we are up to, you can add 80 to this 276 number for certificates of completion over the last 6 years since we started the program. Now, from that, as you can see a little bit further down, we created this Ignite business pitch. And just last year, we had made it up to 21 grants that we had given out, almost $500,000. So that's 21 businesses that could open or expand in the district. Now, collaboration is key. And one of the things that we saw immediately is that a lot of people were taking these classes, but not everybody wanted to open a brick and mortar business in the downtown specifically. But what we do know is success for any part of our community is success for our entire community. So we partnered with our Chamber of Commerce and taught them how to do a pitch competition. So, and how to get funding for it. So now if someone takes our Dream Launch Bootcamp, they have a choice. They can either pitch for funding in the Ignite to put their business in the downtown, or they can pitch with the Chamber of Commerce to put their business elsewhere in the city of Danville or in the county. And so this collaboration has made it much stronger because of the two funding streams that we are now able to offer all of these Dream Launch participants. We have now given out, between the two of us, over $1 million in grants for businesses to start up in our area. Now, I think one of the best things about this, in my personal opinion, I mean, this is great. Don't get me wrong. We're really proud of it. But just like I was talking about with the facade program, once someone and their property and their building starts looking good, you start to see movement with other properties, right? It's kind of contagious. So what we have seen happen, although we have only granted funding to, I guess now we're up to 25 different businesses through this program downtown, we have witnessed more than 100 businesses open or expand in the district since we started this program. And so we can't take credit for all of that, but we do know for certain that this program has spurred excitement in the district, interest in the district. It has motivated property owners to rehabilitate their buildings to be able to put more businesses into the district. And we absolutely count it as a success. So those big numbers, here they are. They need to be updated again. We can't update them fast enough. But what we have found is 52 million in public investment has led to, it's now close to 400 million in private investment. We're actually over 1,000 loft apartments now, when we had 0. And we have more than 20 food and beverage concepts. And so now you can see what that means in the half-mile radius of the downtown, which the downtown area is about a half-mile radius. We have well over 2,000 people living downtown. And again, this went from 0. And so it has really been a whirlwind. It's been exciting to be a part of. But I will say, success brings its own new challenges. And so this work is never done. It just changes what it looks like, just changes a little bit. Because of all of these wonderful things that have happened, last year, our organization, the River District Organization, was recognized by Mainstreet America as one of 3 communities to win the Great American Mainstreet Award. And this award is given to an organization who has shown exemplary leadership and basically serves as a model of successful downtown redevelopment. So we were thrilled to be able to accept that honor last year in Boston, Massachusetts. And because of that, it has led to a lot of wonderful media, a lot of wonderful opportunities such as this one that I'm sitting here with you today. And we could not be more proud. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this part of the presentation and just say, if you have any interest in learning more about our organization, please reach out to me, Diana, at riverdistrictassociation.com, or you can visit our website, you can visit our website at riverdistrictassociation.com.
Well, thank you so much, Diana. Your enthusiasm is just so good. I can see how you make things happen. I think there's a really interesting lesson in there with your 4-point approach, was talking about matching up the hardware with the software. So putting all that capital works, but then you're making sure that all the other elements around it are coming together. And I think that's some fabulous work you've done there. And it really, it has to balance, doesn't it? You've got to be doing both areas.
Oh, absolutely. And, we still, we've got a lot of great things going on. But one thing we've recognized recently is that we have an opportunity that is even larger just than the redevelopment of the property in our downtown. What this work is really about is people. And in the United States, we have an incredible amount of polarization right now, which I'm pretty sure everyone around the world is aware of that. And so what we see in our organization is really an opportunity to think out of the box and take our community to the next level by figuring out ways to connect people again socially in our downtown. One very novel idea that I came across, novel to us anyway, recently, is in our park where we have several different benches set out. You'll see people with their families sitting on the benches, but they don't always interact with one another. They don't always have something to bring them together. So now we are talking about creating a conversation bench. So we just simply take one of those benches that exists downtown, we paint it orange or green or something that's different from everything else, and that's the conversation bench. So if you are feeling social and you want to have conversations and you want to interact with people, go and sit on that bench. How can we pierce the veil between people to get them interacting with not only place but with one another? So that's what we are looking for next in our organization.
Can I ask you, one thing I get asked a lot about is when Mainstreet's got property owners that are not really interested, in the property, and they may be overseas, they may not be here. How do you convince them to get engaged? I mean, you've done some beautiful catalyst projects there.
Yes, thank you. It depends. It's very much a case by case basis, quite frankly. Just like we were saying a minute ago, this work is really about people. And so it's a matter of finding out who owns that property and then digging in deeper, finding out when did they come to own it? Why did they come to own it? Are they local? Are they far away? Do they still have any ties whatsoever to the area? So depending on what the answers to those questions are indicates what way you want to move forward. In some cases, it's someone that thinks, oh, it's a building that's fallen apart that's worth nothing, and they don't think anyone would be interested in it. So it's simply a matter of reaching out and telling them, no, actually, we're happy to help connect you to buyers for this property. Sometimes it's people who are waiting for the value of the property to increase, to sell, so that they can make more money from that. That's education, typically, is what that takes. And then sometimes it's a matter of relation. One of the techniques that I have found that works best, really, not just with properties, but anytime you are facing a challenge with a person, is to find someone that is very close to that person trusts and has a good relationship with, and try to begin working with them. Because if you come at someone as a stranger and they don't know who you are, it can be very difficult to earn that trust, right? It's all about building trust. And so if you can find an advocate who knows that person and begin to build that trust, they may actually be work on that for you and be able to make that connection back.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for being part of our Mainstreet Master Series with Mainstreet SA. It's really been a pleasure to have you on board. And once again, congratulations on the award and the wonderful work you're doing. So thank you so much, Diana.
Thank you very much. And I cannot wait to get over and see some of the great work that you're doing over there as well.
Thank you. We'll see you later then.